why SAO is the only good anime. In that anime, right? There's people are put into this world that is dangerous, right? You can die, and you have to find a group of people to stick with, and you guys are going to keep each other alive, and that creates an incredibly strong bond. And you also, in that world, you experience consequences, right? Serious consequences. It's not like nowadays where you get in a car, well, and you have a car crash, well, you have insurance to fix that, right? So it there's sacrifice, and there's bond, and we've removed all of that. We have removed all of that.
Yeah.
And it's I think that the relationship is not going to heal until life truly gets hard again, honestly, because of that. So,
Yeah, but basically SAO is it's basically a hard game. It's where people are transported into a hard game where they think they're going to experience a new MMO, but in actuality, well, there's a plan from the very beginning to like trap them all in it and have it where if you die in the game, you die in real life. So there's real consequences to a supposed fantasy game, and you enjoyed the have that actually having consequences, right?
yeah, and I think that and what you see in the show is that they bring it up multiple different times, is that there are people who they don't want to go back, or they question whether or not they want to go back because life in the game became better than life in real life, because there was struggle, there was beauty, there was bond, there was like a perfect balance of things that had been created solely by the fact that life was consequential. And in a way, the TV series is it's designed almost perfectly. It wasn't necessarily executed perfectly, because people constantly want to escape to this like different reality, right? This is where you get larpers. It's where you get I'll just say it, anime fans. It's where you get people who are emotionally evolved into TV shows, and people are just they're just not content living in this reality, right? So one of the ways that people escape this reality is through a game, right? And it's funny because SAO is a game. And another ways that people want to they don't want to live in this reality. They want to live in a reality where life is it's got that perfect balance of struggle, beauty, and love. And so, okay, well, now you've got that into SAO. And it's also, what's funny is that they're escaping the modern world, right? They're being taken from the modern world, funnily enough, in 2022, and they're being put into this game where you can die. So I think,
Yeah, and it's giving them all the things that they didn't think the modern world could give them too. It's giving them that the beauty and like in relationships as well, because was how it worked is it was basically how the nerve gear, whatever, how they entered the game. Everything was like real life, basically. Like you saw through the character's eyes, you felt what the character felt. It was basically like an out of body experience, and that transports their entire being into the game, right? And it gave them like the struggle and the relationships, everything else that they were missing in the real world, which is why a lot of people did actually they just stayed on the lower levels, right?
yeah,
Because how SAO worked, I think there was like 100 layers or something like that, and a lot of people just decided to live on like the center layers, on like layer 50 or something like that, and they just lived their lives on like farms or other stuff like that,
yeah, and it's
and raised even families and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And I think that with the main characters, there's something that's kind of interesting. It's like,
Yeah, Kirito and Asuna, for those that don't know.
yeah, yeah,
The main characters of SAO is Kirito and Asuna.
yeah. So these two players, they're they're like the best of the best, right? So they're these frontline fighters. They fight together and all this stuff. They solve problems together, and they risk their life for each other. Eventually, they decide that they'll marry and whatever and stuff like that, right? So they but before all of this happened, they were wondering, like, is it really worth it, right? Is anything really worth it anymore? So they just decide, they get married, right? And then they go and they take like this 2-week honeymoon or whatever it was, and well, a lot happens, but ultimately they find that there's this beauty in life that is worth fighting for, and they take this break period, right? And it's almost like in life, when we're fighting for something, we live for the break period, right? We just live for that rest. But basically the point is that they find that there's like this beauty that's worth uh fighting for and worth dying for. And they find that life is also worth living solely because they have each other. And all of this was solely facilitated by the fact that there was a good mixture of beauty and struggle. Actually, it was mostly facilitated by the struggle, because like beauty is fleeting. And not only is it fleeting, but it's like it loses its appeal after time, right? Like, how many times can you look at a beautiful mountain and, what's it going to feel like after the 10th time, right? So it
Yeah.
basically, all of this was facilitated by the fact that there's a struggle to life, and it totally changed everything. But now modern relationships
Yeah.
and every fact of modern life, every part of it, it's like, oh, there's absolutely no struggle whatsoever. In fact, the struggle with modern life is that there is no struggle.
And like and even when they finally do get out of like the SAO thing, like it's so that they can do these things for real and um experience that life together that they wanted.
Exactly.
Because while it was for a lot of people, the game was better than their real lives, because it did offer the struggle which humanity needs and is important for humanity to thrive. They also realized that they can create a life for themselves together IRL, and it can be just as good as the game, even if it takes more work, because they have to like make that for themselves.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that's also kind of important to think about, is that they get out of the first game. Everyone gets out of the first game except her, right? The game is beaten, but she's trapped in there for, I remember the reasons, but she's basically trapped in there by this pervert who runs the software company and all this stuff. So he's got control of her brain, right? And so he's also got control of her body. And Kirito finds this out, and he's like, okay, well, I have to get her out of here, right? And he goes he's I guess the way I would say it is that he finds his cousin wants to screw him, um literally. uh and he's,
They're not perfect characters, okay? They're from Japan. It's a Japanese show, so the characters aren't exactly perfect, guys.
yeah, sweet home
It's a
Japan,
DJing culture. It's a DJing culture in Japan.
sweet home Japan,
Sweet home Japan. That's
but
right.
but it, what is displayed in, I call it the second season, even though it's not the second season. There he goes into this different world that she's been trapped into because she's still plugged into the software. And it's almost what he experiences is more brutal than anything he's ever experienced, because he finds her and he witnesses her like raped in front of his face, right? And that's like the he's also been trapped at the moment as he's watching this, right? And I mean, there's so much, it's hard to explain,
Yeah.
it's hard to put it into words, but there's this pure struggle that is displayed that really shows you what true love looks like, and you can see true love more in this fake TV show, in this fake world, than you can anywhere else in our real world. And I think that's why people choose to fantasize and choose to get emotionally involved in TV shows. um it's really sad to see. It's really sad to see this. It's just, I don't know. And I think that that scene where she's raped in front of his face was actually very important to display everything as gruesome as you possibly could, because when people can't when people can't see what struggle looks like and what pain looks like and what evil looks like in its purest form, then they get some milk toast idea of it. It's like, okay, well, it's not that bad to be raped because I saw what it's like to be raped on TV, right? But if you were to display what it's actually like to be raped on TV, everything as horrible as you could, then people would be like, "Oh, it's actually really horrible to be raped," right? And they would really think about it more. So,
Yeah, but it gives people like it lets them be able to see like how these things actually are, and how and yeah, and how like we need to view these things, and how I while this is semi off topic, and how like and partially how like right wingers should like view like abused women. I know it's like off topic, I guess, but you see a lot in like the far right circles is that they just like put down and like they just want to humiliate any woman that's ever been abused or like hurt by a man or anything like that.
hmm,
But we did have a little bit of compassion for people, and especially people that like we care about, but then realize that people can care about someone that has been like traumatized and stuff like that, and that sometimes that's just life, and that the people you care about and the women you love will that they it's possible that they'll be hurt, or in the past they could have been hurt by someone, and then and that you're gonna have to deal with that and potentially even save them.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that you would see a lot of that rhetoric if people had firsthand experienced these horrible things, right? So it's like it all comes back to the fact that we don't experience horrible things. We say horrible things about people, and we make we say things that we don't understand. We try and do things that we don't understand before we do them. And if we had a little bit more experience under our belt, then maybe we wouldn't say stupid things. Maybe we wouldn't do stupid things, right?
Well, maybe
Play
not as stupid of things, you know.
maybe not as stupid of things, but maybe yeah, maybe just a little bit less. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that it's important to display that in its purest form, because you need to see how horrible it is, right? Like when you live in a world when you can watch television, you're probably living in a pretty safe world, right? So you're never going to know what it's like to
Yeah.
have that happen to you, or to anyone. And so you do need to see as bad as it can be, uh right? Because if the TV is going to do one thing, at least make it a useful tool for displaying struggle, right? At least make
Yeah.
people understand that. But,
Well, yeah. And it needs to be done in the right way too, because it does need to actually like show proper struggle. Because like there are a lot of shows that are just like that oh they're quote unquote like rated M for mature or rated R TV shows, and they supposedly show like oh it shows this like oh this gore and this violence and the sexuality, but in the way they present it, it's just gore for gore's sake, right? It's purely to make the audience entertained by the gore, right? And the violence and like the sex and everything else. Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Oh boy, Game of Thrones. Yeah. Um, that's a really funny one. That's one that people got emotionally involved in. And people get emotionally involved in TV shows and I think specifically anime for a reason, which I'll explain. People get involved in that because their life is so unappealing, right? So look at the life of a modern person. You wake up every day, you go to your workplace, right, which is either McDonald's or Walmart or something that is similar enough. And you come home, you're either a loner and you have no one and you're estranged from your family, or you have a totally horrible family, totally horrible roommate, right? So, but let's say that you actually do have family, right? The bonds that, what's the
Yeah,
extent?
people are either screwed up and social or they're alone and mentally ill.
Yeah,
That's where we're at.
yeah, yeah. But let's say you actually do have family, right? What's so great about your modern family? Like, what honestly have they done for you besides the bare minimum, right? It's like, yeah, I watch TV at the end of the day with my dad. He never taught me anything. I don't know how to use a socket wrench. Showed me how to change a car battery once. Yeah, I've really bonded with my dad so great. We went on vacation a couple times. Yeah, we really do love each other. He never disciplined me when I did anything wrong because he doesn't really care for me. He actually just wants my affirmation that he's a good dad. But yeah. So basically, that's the extent of our bonds, right? So even if we do have these people around us, it's like, wow, they're so great, right? I care so much. It's like, no one's going to care for that. No one wants